guests on that can speak very well on that topic. We have a national speaker online, Mr. Kevin T. Robertson, America's leading focus expert. And in studio, we have Ken Mustafa, New York City local activist, otherwise known as Nev Muse. Gentlemen, I'm going to get right into it.
Yeah.
Where are America's black leaders today? Somewhere between the assassinations of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, the ascension of Louis Farrakhan, the presidential runs of Shirley Chisholm and Jesse Jackson, and the marches of Al Sharpton. It seems that black leadership is no longer useful. It used to start from the grassroots and in communities. So, what say all of you? What say both of you? Kev, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Kev,
Yes, sir.
we'll start with you. What say you?
Okay. You want me? You want me to tell you where black leadership is
That's what I
right
wanna
now
know.
today?
That's what I want to know, brother.
Okay. Well, I help people develop leadership topics all the time. Leadership is not a right; it's a responsibility. And I believe that the reason why we don't have greater leaders today is because people cannot handle the level of responsibility they have on a lower level, which means that when it's time to rise to the ascension of leadership, they have a difficult time stepping into more responsibility. Now, this comes because you have at least 72.5% of African American males grow up in a house without a male. You have too many women having to raise males, and it's not their job and responsibility. So we have a lot of brokenness. We're very fractured. Another thing, too, Ray, we spend $1.5 trillion as an African American community, and we're the last to participate in the profits. So what happens here is that also, let's take this into account as well. You have 75% of our world's population has the issue with their self-esteem. We as people in the African American community, we got robbed of our religion, our culture, many things. We don't know who we are. So now you're expecting a male in specific, because women are leaders as well. Let me get to that second as I close my point. But you're asking a male who doesn't even know who of being a teacher, a person in the clergy in the church. You're asking them to step into a role of a manager. You understand? Leadership is about management, bro. And we have no life management skills. So you're asking a woman to do the man's job. Men are being emasculated because their salaries are being taken away, and they strip you of all your human, constitutional, and civil rights every single day. You got issues with the police. I could go on and on and on. So we're fractured, right? Now the key is, and I like for the other guest to maybe address this because he's probably more of a subject matter expert in that area, is how do you fix where we're fractured? Because we're fractured in so many different areas.
All right, Kenny.
And first of all, I just want to say, Kev, it's really hard to come after you behind that because you covered such a broad topic in a small spectrum, and you're so on point. He put the needle on the head. You know, most of us are not learning about ourselves or learning our capabilities till we get into a setting such as college. For those of us who don't have any parents, or for people out there that don't have, I was very fortunate. I was raised with a mother who was an educator. I grew up in the Nation of Islam, and the teachings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of course, Wallace D. Muhammad, and Minister Farrakhan and things like that. We used to always talk about, but I don't want to just put it on just on that subject. But when I said I was able to learn early. So now, based on what he was telling, what he's speaking about, because he said fraction,
Right.
he said fracture, and he's right. You understand? Our fractures need surgery. There's different kinds of fractures. There's cracks in the bone,
Right.
and then there's unstabilization. Ours is 400 years of unstabilization, so we're not really learning anything. Most young black men or women are learning about themselves when they get to college, and that's because they have a teacher that's not afraid to speak up on the subject. Because I heard professors back in the days will say they would get ostracized for trying to teach something that would benefit us. They would have their own
Mm.
peers say to them, "Why you doing that? Don't you think they would get mad at you? Don't you think they would be more upset with you?" He said, "Well, I'd rather them know about themselves and be upset with me than I got my job done." You understand? So that's the thing I know, that the same, as long as it took for us to get in that position over 400 years, it's going to take us around 400 years to get it back. You know what I mean?
Okay, but I'm going to address two of you with something. Now, in the 70s and actually in the 60s, we had black leaders. You had Martin Luther King Jr. You had Shirley Chisholm. You had Malcolm X. So you had leaders. You had people that were expressive. And in the 70s and 80s, with the integration of drugs that plagued the inner cities and civil rights achievements, basically destroyed those efforts with drugs that interfered with the cities. It eliminated the ability to be self-reflective and self-critical. We blame everybody else but ourselves.
Well, I don't mean to cut in, but you know what it is. First of all, we have to understand the analogy that we are under. When you say that, how do we have to understand how do we get there?
Okay.
You understand? We have to understand the engineering behind it. You know what I mean? The programming that's done behind it between schools, banking, systems, stuff. We're not taught how to be independent leaders from other people. That's the opposition. Where the leadership comes in is that those who got in the inside, like the spook who sat by the door, are you coming back and teaching it? Like you hear this brother right here saying that, brother Cav saying that he went out and he got the lessons that he needed. And then he did the study and the research. And then he comes back and bring it to the table so people could listen. How many people are trained to listen? There's another lesson that we need to learn. You understand?
Kev?
Mhm.
Kev?
You
Yes, sir.
respond to that, Kev?
Yeah, in the
Still
short
here.
duration of time, I try to keep my statement short so that he could get into, because I know we're dealing with,
No, absolutely.
you know.
Kev, go ahead.
No problem. You wanted me to address what Ken just said?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I believe that, going back to the point that you were talking about, Ray, about, we had these great leaders with Martin Luther King and, Malcolm X. And, those are obviously the ones that are talked about in the history books all the time and so celebrated in the month of February for Black History Month. But there are a lot of great leaders in the community that's never talked about. And, I'm all of us on the show right now are old school. And I love being old school with traditional values. But as we've advanced in society, we've lost a lot of that. A lot of that got stripped away, when things were a lot more simple. Technology makes the world advance. It evolves. Okay, Ray, you mentioned about the crack era. And then the game always changes every decade. You have something that is catastrophic that happens to us, unfortunately. Why does stuff so catastrophic have to happen to us in the African American community? We're decimated with finances. We're decimated with relationships. Divorces is 52.3%. The number one cause of divorce is finance. Okay, so we're fractured financially, we're fractured relationally, we're fractured spiritually. The church isn't doing everything it is that they're supposed to be doing. But back in the day, the church was nice and wholesome. And then but advancement, you have to pay the price for advancement. So Martin Luther King and Malcolm X took it as far as they could. They got assassinated for what they believe in. As any man or woman should, you should be willing to die for your vision, for your dream, for your beliefs. Those men were, but you don't even see that anymore. So we could take it back to what Ken said before. If you're going to lose 400 years, if we don't have another 400-year life cycle to get it back. Remember, Dr. Martin Luther King talked about when she was talking. I apologize. Coretta Scott King talked to Byron Allen. And she talked to Byron Allen before she passed away about the fourth stage. It's called economic inclusion. We're not asking anymore. We're taking it. Now, you got to have the balls and guts enough to take it. And you can't be standing around waiting for it to jump into your lap. So to fix something that's fractured or broken, some of us need to go and get repair. Where do you get repair and healing? Some of us need counseling. Oh, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear we need counseling. We don't see the counselor gives you what they call coping strategies. They give you skills. They give you tools. They give you strategies to work through a situation so you can repair. What does reparations mean? What does reparations mean? Repair. We don't want to repair because what Brother Ken talked about, and I'll finalize my thought here and let it breathe, is because listening skills. Watch this. In the corporate workplace, listening skills are right around 42.3%. Past, pitiful, and unacceptable. We hear what we want to hear instead of us listening to things that are positive, that will repair, that will put us as a state in the Black community in a whole nother mindset. I could keep going on and on, but I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing on that too. Of course, like I said, learning to achieve is always trial and error. I think a great thing that would help our community a lot is to teach our children that don't be afraid to fail. You know, we're not taught
Correct.
that. We're automatically starting at the point that we can never make it anyway. So, you know what I mean? It's a mental condition, and we have to break that condition, and it starts with us. It starts with people like yourself. You understand? Who's out in the community doing what they has to do.
Yeah, can I interject something here real quick off of your point? Yeah, off of your point. So you talked about failure, right? See, we're afraid of failure. We let other people project their fears on us. That's a big part of why we're not successful. So Ken, I want you to address this, or maybe even Ray can touch on it as well.
Yeah.
Because if your self-esteem is low, you don't know who you are. You're not making any money when you're in the hood. That's why a lot of white people don't understand how can a cat come from the hood and he's forced into drug dealing. Why? Because the food stamps aren't doing it anymore. Because my mom is on welfare. She's not. I have to hustle crack just so I can put food on the table. So the question is, how do you fix somebody who is so fractured and so broken? They're beat down every failure. They don't know how to overcome that. Like me, I've always been a very natural person who knows how to attack his goals and attack his dreams. I have supreme confidence, so I beat failure down. I understand it's part of the process, but a lot of us don't.
Okay, hold that point though, because the Black church used to be the coddle point. The Black church used to be the visionary. We came from the Black church. All of these leaders in the 60s and early 70s came from the Black church. So where does that fit in now?
And you wanna address that, man?
I'll let you go. I'll let you go if you have your statement prepared. I mean,
I got something really simple I want to say about that.
Sure, let's hear it.
Here's what's happening. Is when I'm doing professional presentations, and I turn into a superstar in the corporate market because I just broke the truth down and put it in their face, and I gave them a return on their investment. What I learned about the corporate market is they didn't care about motivation. They don't care about religion and politics because you get division with religion. And you could have somebody be a Buddhist or a Methodist or a Muslim. And you have so many different fractions or so many different sanctions of each one of those that everybody has a difference of opinion. So Ken, here's the key. Religion is division. And we all have an uncontrollable desire to be right all the time. So we spend so much time arguing about who's right instead of finding solutions to what can help our community. We do not spend enough time on the solutions. We spend time fighting all the time, arguing about frivolous activity just because somebody wants to be right. Yeah. And that hurts our leadership.
It does. I mean, sometimes we are in a kill the messenger society where your conclusions on your premises has been proven. It could be 100% fact, but you'll have a person that just because they don't like you, that'll deny what you're saying is being true. Mm-hmm. You understand? So now,
Ken, going back to what I said about self-esteem. Yeah. If my self-esteem is low, my jealousy and my rage literally overtake anything good you got going on. I can't just rise up and say, yo, that brother's doing this thing. I can't give you kudos and props. That's not what we're doing. Look at the stage in the internet right now. Mm-hmm. I'm the only person in my space that's a person of color who runs the most highly converted ad in the history of Facebook, and I got haters. How come I don't have, yo, that brother's doing this thing over there? Like Ken, like Ray. Ray told me he wanted to start his show. I said, Ray, do it. Yeah. I didn't say, Ray, you're whack. It's not going to work. None of that, man. I supported him. If your self-esteem is low, you don't even know how to do that.
Yeah, that sense of trust has been installed. It's been institutionalized.
It's gone, bro.
It's
Exactly.
been institutionalized us and over so many years. That's what I'm saying. The accomplishment is not going to happen overnight. But I want to get back to the churches.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
A person me growing up, young on a certain religious cultural diet, you know what I mean? A lot of times I couldn't find the kind of foods that I eat, so I had to go to the kosher. I remember my mother being small. When I was younger, we would go to the kosher supermarket and we would get the food and stuff like that. And they would teach me certain things and tell me certain things because they saw that I had an aptitude to listen. I don't know what it's from, but whether you trust it or not, it's another thing. But let's understand what religion do for other cultures. Most of the time, the religious institution is the bank for that culture. Like if you go to the Jewish temple, the people cling so hard to the temple because basically the temple helps them finance their dreams. It helps them finance ideas. There's a circuit for that. With black people, we go to church and it's only spiritual. They're not teaching an educational basis. They're not teaching an economic basis. They're not teaching home survival. They're not even teaching home economics in our churches. So a lot of times that I say that if I started alone in Harlem, if I started a clothing store in Harlem and the bank denies me because we understand that 42 USC code 1982 what Byron Allen was talking about is about the pursuit of happiness. It's a certain entitlement that America owes us from the lack of deprivation that they gave to us, rendered on us. That's in the thing. They not supposed, a black person getting fired from a job and you're the only black person there. That's against the law.
Against the law. Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? But a lot of people don't know that. So what we have to do is the people in the church have to start teaching. But we only have the teachers in the church that's doing, the only thing they doing is want to give food, want to give parties, barbecues. We had a president, same thing. You understand? We spent more time celebrating than we did putting demands on him. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the thing I'm talking about. But in other communities, you look at the Catholic Church. My grandmother was in Harlem. She went to Mount Nebo Church. She served that church. She moved there in her 20s. She served that church. She died 103 years old. So you do the math.
Wow.
That's 73 years she served that church. You know where my grandmother closed her eyes at? In a Catholic nursing home, because that church didn't even take the money to invest in the elder seniors that's in the church.
Wow.
You understand? So that's the thing. So we have to start blaming the churches. If you're going to take our money, or anybody that's taking our money or calling ourselves leaders, I'm not asking you to, I'm not going against you, but I'm going to ask you to prove your leadership, because lately what we get in our community is what I call DASOs, double agent sellouts, where you're giving us a face of a person who appears black, but their agenda is for the person that pays them. So first of all, in order for us to do anything, we have to eliminate those people. Look at the thing with Kobe Bryant. Okay? Sister, you're going to insult us, and we the people that support you. So first thing we have to learn is the same people that we put into that power, or you delegate to us as power, because who delegated you? We didn't delegate you. You never proven yourself to our community. So if you are in power, then we're going to have to ask you as a community to prove yourself. Now, bringing the unity is another thing. You understand? It's so complex. Like he said, this is so fractured. Sometimes it involves amputation. I mean, medically speaking, if a person has a leg that's broken beyond compare, you know what I'm talking about. It's broken beyond repair. Okay, they amputate it.
Right.
So at what point are we willing to amputate? What point are we willing to say, okay, well, we no longer carry you. The ark has sailed. You understand? Because we got some people, they will never know until we're sailing in the ocean. Now
I am so glad you said that, because that brings up my next point.
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about the chasm between what are considered the upwardly mobile blacks that either get money through education or through athletics, and those that are in the hood. Okay. And the fact that those folks that are upwardly mobile that may not know how, or just seemingly don't want to help those that continue to be in the hood. Lack of education, lack of resources, lack of medical. Okay. Talk to me about that, gentlemen.
Kev, you want to go first, brother?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you know, what's happening here is the leaders that are the most educated Obviously when you don't know better, you can't do better. That's for all of us. But as soon as you know better, that means that I'm gonna change my zip code. Or I grew up in Prince George's County. It's the biggest county in the
Glad he
state of
said
Maryland.
that. I'm glad
I
he said
grew
that.
up in the hood. Okay, okay. I grew up in Capitol Heights, Maryland, and Seat Pleasant was where I moved from before I moved to Capitol Heights, where Kevin Durant is from as well. So here's what I learned: is that everybody is trying to change their zip code, and you can do that through education. So kudos for all the Black people who are getting money. Listen, Prince George's County has the biggest concentrated amount of Black wealth in the whole country. And they did a top 10 list of the most prominent Black communities. Prince George's County has 7 of them
Mm.
that made the list. Okay. So we have a lot of well-off people. Now that's great. So there's leaders in every single section of business. You have nurses who are leaders. And leaders are not just male. Males may have the dominated trait when it comes to leadership, but women are making power moves. We are far from the women's liberation movement, but yet women are still fighting for their rights. We are far from the civil rights movement. I was born in 1968, okay? But Black people still are not treated as equal. And women definitely are not being treated as equal. We don't even want to talk about outside this country, okay? Because in other countries, the dog has better rights than the females do, okay? Now, let me move on to the next point. 2 more points I want to make that's going to round this out. I want to give it back over to Ken because it seems to be a nice dialogue back and forth going on here with a difference of views. Now, the other thing would be is that since you have all these people that have these prominent positions and they're leaders, but there's a lot of people that get in leadership positions who have juice, okay, that do not. And they talk all this stuff about, oh, I'm gonna reach back, I'm gonna give back, I'm gonna do this. You're not reaching back to get nobody, bro. You are moving on and you're not reaching that hand back. So that means that you're not being taught something called succession planning. That means the next people coming up behind you. If you're 70, you got to look out for the people that's in their 60s. The 60-year-olds got to look out for the 50-year-olds, so on and so forth, all the way down to the babies. And that is not happening. So you got a very small percent. Bro, do you realize that if you are 50 years old, if you're old school and you're 50 years old and you have a net worth of $5 to $7 million, you are in the 1 percentile range of people in this world. Well, first of all, Black people barely make up 15% of the population, okay? So if you're a 1 percenter, okay, like I am, I'm a 1 percenter. In my way, I do what I have to do to give back. I have a mentorship program. I'm all about succession planning. Succession planning means that who's going to step into your shoes of leadership and take over the reins of power. Because what we have here, gentlemen, is we got way too many people that are in positions where they got juice and they're not doing anything for anybody else because they're selfish. I got mine. I've separated myself away from the rest of the Black people and I'm good. And that's not good. That's weak. But we're not being taught because systematically speaking, we've been so broken, we've been so fractured, we're so disenfranchised with being Black. Some people are Black, they don't even want to be Black. They don't even want to associate themselves with Black. There's no pride left, gentlemen. There's no pride. There's no supreme confidence. We're not reigning with anything but selfishness and jealousy. And I got mine, and that's a problem, Ken. So I want you to address how, and I know the nation is real big on this. So I appreciate your viewpoints on here, Ray. I appreciate the setup questions. This is a great dialogue. I appreciate being on the show because I get a chance to speak from a place that's real, stuff that I see every single day. How come that person in a higher position is not helping the next person out? And it's a lot of lip service going on, but it's very little activity going on. So Ken, can you address that? What can we do so that the 70-year-olds can protect the 60-year-olds, 60s with the 50s, 50s with the 40s, 40s with the 30s, 30s with the 20s with the 10-year-olds, and the babies that don't know anything. Where's the level of responsibility on that?
And he made that really complex.
Kev, you got 2 minutes, brother.
Okay, so what I like to say, in order for us, I'm gonna cut to the chase. In order for us to really recreate ourselves, to do better, we have to recreate ourselves. We have to reinvent ourselves. We have to learn. We have to have our own separate institutions where we have teachers that come back home to root and teach. You understand? And brothers like Kev that could come and speak, brothers like you that could come and speak. We have to have this paradigm where our younger people are forced to listen to us. That means us being foot soldiers like we are. We out in the streets, we talking to the people. Even if you're not listening, even if I talk to the kids on my elevator all the time. I trap them off, but I know what? I got 4 of them to go away to college. I got 3 of them on scholarships. I got the other 2 doing city jobs and doing great for themselves. So that comes from constantly beating them in their head. Like, listen, I don't care if your parents not around. I don't care. The women have to learn to let the men teach too. That's another thing we have, because we have this the upgrowing of feminine uprising, and where it's a beautiful thing. But as our women get stronger, and we as black people decreases, you understand, there's a certain imbalance, because now we're not looked at as powerful. For us to get back our power, we have to get back there and talk to. I don't care if your parents not around or not. I'm talking to, hey, young man, let me talk to you for a second. If I know you and I see you and I'm comfortable with talking to you, I'll talk to you and try to educate you. Mark 4 Disco Reunion, I'm going to be there. This is going to be at 247 Fabian Place, Newark, New Jersey. It's at Club Eclipse. I'm going to be DJing there. Come hang out, y'all. Thank you for the plug. NEB Productions, I'm here.
We've been talking with Ken Mustafa, Kevin T. Robertson, America's Focus expert, and I'm just going to close with this. Unfortunately, African Americans, we have a negative perception of ourselves. We've been unwilling to demonstrate the significance of service to the poor and the disadvantaged, and there are folks that have risen that cannot give back or won't give back. We need to do that. We need to learn to do that amongst ourselves. Hey, this has been Coach Ray from Coach Ray Speaks. I appreciate you listening. Thank you, and have a great night.